All right, welcome everyone to Rights of Students with Court Involvement. My name is Lisa Bernard, also known as Elizabeth Bernard. I am a staff attorney with the School Justice Project, and we thank everyone for being here. Just a quick note that we will forward these slides at a later date. So no need to worry about writing anything down. We'll forward these slides to you at a later time. So jumping right in. Really quickly, if you are not familiar with Advocates for Children, we are an independent agency that protects the rights of all New York City students. We have a helpline, which is open from Monday to Thursday from 10 to 4, which offer free legal, free advice to parents who are in need of special education and general education help. And we offer free legal services to low-income families, as well as on our website. We have a ton of resources and guides for families throughout New York City and professionals like yourself. We offer workshops, trainings, and webinars like this one, and we do a lot of policy advocacy and impact litigation. A little bit about my project in particular, the School Justice Project. We are a small team, but very mighty. We help young people who are facing court system related involvement. So young people who may be in secure detention and non-secure detention. Many who are facing other at risk of facing such placement. We also do a lot of school suspension hearings, exclusions from schools due to their maybe their behaviors, bullying behaviors, and we help these students get the support they need to address their academic and behavioral needs in order to make progress in school. Just quickly, what we will be covering today in this webinar, it is an hour-long webinar, so we are going to be moving quite quickly through the information. But we'll go through the general rights of students in secure and non-secure placements and kind of break down what secure and non-secure even is. The rights of those students with disabilities, whether they are in a secure or non-secure placement. The rights of those students once they're released from a close to home program, the rights of the students once they're released from secure detention, common enrollment issues, and just some takeaways. And we'll have some resources at the end, which is a new addition to this year's webinar because we have some new information. So really quickly jumping right into general rights of students with insecure and non-secure detention. What we know right now is that youth in the juvenile or child welfare systems are among the most educationally disadvantaged. And all of the students are often overage and undercredited. If you know anything about this population, most of the students are overage and undercredited. It may look like a 15 or 16-year-old in the 7th or 8th grade. That is most common. Nationally, nearly 2/3 of youth in the court system, as we know, may be Black or Latinx, and about 65 to 70% of those involved with the JJ system have a disability, particularly learning, emotional, or mental health. So this is a little image that we love to use to represent the schools to prison pipeline. And we know that this is a direct, result of many of the young people that we see. They miss class due to, maybe family related other issues. They're often held back a grade. They're suspended, they don't graduate, and eventually that cycles them into the JJ system. Black students with disabilities who qualify for education, special education services are suspended and expelled at very high rates. And this is something that we have been seeing consistently for many, many years. So this is just the image that we like to use to represent that. So currently, in secure detention, there are 2 main facilities in New York City that young people can be sent to. I just want to break this down really quickly because oftentimes people don't understand the difference between secure and non-secure, especially if you are not an attorney or if you do not work in that space. There are two secure facilities in New York City. One is Horizon in the Bronx, and one is Crossroads in Brooklyn, located in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn, and Horizon, which is in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. And these facilities mirror a more traditional jail setting. They are both run by ACS, meaning both facilities are run and managed by ACS. However, youth do attend schools that are run by the Department of Education. So both of these facilities do not allow for a young person to leave to go to school. They attend school while in the facility, right? So that means they are basically just walking through the hallway from one wing of the facility to another wing to attend school. And the reason why we break that down is because in a close to home detention, right, where we're talking about non-secure or limited secure placements, this looks a little bit different, right? So in both NSP, which is the non-secure, you'll hear me say, and you'll hear me say NSP and LSP to refer to non-secure placements and limited secure placements. These facilities are operated by nonprofit providers. They are spread throughout the 5 boroughs, run as group homes with anywhere from 6 to 20 youth in each. So in LSPs, they attend schools within the facility, kind of similar to the secure detention, whereas in the non-secure detentions, many of the young people are, well, all of them are really going to a Passages Academy site, off-site, run by the DOE as well, right? And so we know that whether it's non-secure, limited secure, or a secure detention, they are all under District 79 Passages Academy under the umbrella of the DOE. So we want to talk about compulsory school age, right, and the right to attend and what this looks like. This does not change. This rule does not change because a young person is in a secure, non-secure, or limited secure placement. This is true for even those students, right? So students must stay in school between the ages of 6 and 16. And school districts can require them to stay until the end of the school year when they turn 17. So that's a really important distinction. And they may stay in school until 21. And we know that due to raise the age, we do have a lot of older young people who are over the age of 17 at this point in these detention settings, specifically Crossroads and Horizon, due to raise the age. And so again, they have the right to, and they may attend school up to the age of 21, even if they are in these settings. And so a young person should not be denied that right at all under any circumstances. So really quickly, we want to go through the basic rights of students in all of these facilities, right? Secure, non-secure, and limited secure. Students have the right to attend their former schools if there are no court orders in place which prevent their attendance. And if you are not in a legal space, if you're unfamiliar with what it means to have a court order, that could look like an order of protection, limited or full stay away order of protection, which would prevent a young person from being within a certain amount of feet or talking to or communicating by text in person with an individual who may attend the school, with a staff who may work at the school. And so unless this is a factor in the student returning to their former school, then there is no reason why a young person should be denied going to their former school. So middle school students at Passages, they must be given grade level work and be able to take citywide tests, and high school students must be able to sit for Regents exams. So on test day, when we have our students who are in the community, right, and they take Regents exams, they take various citywide tests, those tests should be administered to students who are also in secure, non-secure, and limited secure facilities as well. There's no reason why they should not be administered those exams. Passages is a DOE school, as mentioned earlier, and therefore all the credits that they earn should be transferred once a student transitions out of detention or placement, right? So what this looks like is if a young person goes in and was in the 8th grade and matriculates into 9th grade and attends their first semester of 9th grade, or their first couple months in 9th grade trimester in any one of these facilities, that means that they should absolutely be given all the credits and grades that they earned while attending school in one of these facilities. If a student transitions out of placement mid-school year, the student should be placed in the same classes once back in the community, right? And so we want to make sure is that students who are maybe halfway through a science or an English class can continue that, right? They should not be left behind and starting over again. They should be able to pick up where they left off. Students in both secure detention and close to home programs have the right to receive special education services. So this is really important because I think it is one of the things that many parents are often confused about. And many parents don't understand what their rights are or don't know what their rights are once their child is in one of these placements, right? It can be difficult to understand what those rights look like, but oftentimes it looks very much the same. If a student is receiving certain related services on their special education plan, which is an SEP, we'll talk a little bit about that later, then that should be happening within that facility. Students with IEPs have the right to receive special education services that are similar to what are on their IEPs. So we say similar because many times we know that our facilities cannot offer the same advantages or resources as a traditional school. And so many times it may look like instead of a child getting a service twice or 3 times a week, they may get that once or twice. And so it is crafted and tailored to be able to meet the staff and capacity of the staff within a facility, right? And so sometimes it may not look completely the same, but students do still have the right to receive those services. So Passages Academy, they must get the student's IEP within 5 days of the students attending Passages. And this just basically means that we don't want students sitting around in classrooms not receiving the educational services that they are supposed to receive because somehow someone dropped the ball and did not share the IEP. So it is a rule that, you know, Passages should have the IEP within a certain amount of time. Passages should reach out to parents or guardians and work to develop what's known as a special education plan, right? This is similar to an IEP. So this is what I mentioned earlier, a special education plan, I'll go back to, someone asked the question, I can answer it really quickly. Because I know I didn't technically say we'll answer questions at the end, but when I say similar, so like I was saying before, there are many times within a facility, right? The capacity looks a lot different than what we would see in a traditional high school or a traditional middle school. There may not be 5 speech therapists. There may only be 3. And again, this is something Advocates for Children is working with the city to make sure we can see more of. We need more funding for more maybe speech therapists or just support staff in our facilities. And so sometimes what this may look like is instead of a student getting speech twice a week, they may only get it once a week. So that's all this means. This does not mean that they're not getting it at all. This just means things may be minimized due to capacity within a certain facility, if that makes sense. I hope that answers your question, Marianne. Thanks for your question. So again, Passages should be reaching out to parents and guardians and work to develop what is called a special education plan, which is similar to the IEP. This meeting must be held within 30 days of the student's admissions to Passages. And so I think this is really important to note, especially for parents who are concerned about what it means. What does it mean for my child to have an IEP and be in a facility, secure detention, limited secure, non-secure? It does look like Passages Academy still communicating with, you know, let's say, for example, this should look like the someone at Passages Academy, such as the school psychologist, reaching out to the parent to say, hey, we want to schedule an IEP meeting, right? So it should not look like parents not receiving, notice of the IEP, right? We know that parents, even when their children are in the community, they have a right to receive notice of an IEP meeting. Parents have a right to get that same notice, so that they know an IEP meeting is being held, so that they can participate in such a meeting, right? How do we make sure that parents are communicated with? Please follow up with parents all the time. Make sure that they're aware of these meetings. There should be no reason why an ACS worker is making educational decisions for a child, even if they are in custody in ACS care, right? And that looks like absolutely making sure that parents are participating in IEP meetings, even if their children are in a secure or non-secure facility. Right, again, so at the end, I'm saying here, parents have the right to attend because naturally there should be no one else besides the parent making any educational decisions for students just because they are in a secure or non-secure setting. So I want to talk really quickly about transitioning from close to home. Close to home, again, are those non-secure, limited secure placements that we talked about earlier. What that looks like, it's a very challenging time for many families because this can often feel like, what do we do next? Like, how do we know where our young person, where our child stands once they are released? So each student should have a placement or permanency specialist assigned to plan for the student's reentry. This can look like maybe an education specialist. The specialist should work along with the DOE and the ACS education unit to plan for the youth's education reentry plan, right? So what does this look like? This looks like making sure we know the amount of credits that were earned, making sure we know what the grades were, making sure that if there were any changes made to the IEP specifically, right? If the young person underwent an evaluation while in the facility, that those things are then noted on the new IEP, right? Because we know that SEPs and IEPs look very different, and we want to make sure that those things are translated over to the new IEP. Specialists should remain in communication with the youth homeschool to ensure a smooth transition, right? And so we want to make sure that when young people are re-entering their communities, there is no lag between the amount of time that a student kind of gets home and then goes back to school, right? We know that idle time can be really very, very critical for many young people who are at home and not doing as much. And so we want to make sure that there is no lapse in time where a young person is just at home idle. So the specialist should remain in contact and in communication with the homeschool to make sure that the transition happens immediately. Specialists should also coordinate with DOE and the Committee on Special Education where it is appropriate, right? If the young person, for example, has a non-secure place, not a non-secure, if the young person has a non-public school recommendation on their IEP, that's where the Committee on Special Education will come in to ensure that necessary evaluations are completed and submitted, meetings have occurred, and that the youth's grades and credit status is clearly articulated. So we talk about that a lot because credits are really, really important, especially as we're talking about young people who are in secure settings. If you're in a jail setting and you earn any credit, that is extremely admirable, especially when we're talking about young people with disabilities. And so they need and they deserve to get every single credit that they've earned while in placement. So this is a really important one. Specialists should also work alongside the DOE to ensure that appropriate school placement and transportation has been arranged. I think this is a really big and important one, especially as we're talking about youth who are in these settings. Many of them have unique needs as far as transportation is concerned and how they are getting to and from certain places within their neighborhood. And so safety planning is a big part of what should be happening when we're thinking about how do we make sure that young people have access to appropriate and safe transportation. We know the stigma around young people and taking a school bus to school, but what are the other options for young people when we're talking about maybe how safety plays out in their neighborhood when they're returning home from a jail setting? So specialists may use the youth's last home visit to escort the youth and family to the DOE enrollment center with the required documentation to take additional steps to ensure youth is immediately enrolled in an appropriate placement upon reentry. And so this can look different. I mean, this mainly this points to maybe our young people who are in general education settings and those who are in non-secure settings because they do have home visits when they earn that. And so if they earn it and, you know, a specialist can use that time to make sure that all the ducks are in a row for their enrollment. So this link here below kind of gives more concise and specific information about what the roles and responsibilities are of the specialists. This was not a you know, document that was written by Advocates for Children, but a document that is available to the public through NewYorkCity.gov, where the city specifically cites what specialists are supposed to do and what is expected of them for when a young person returns home. So now we'll talk about transitioning from secure placement. And I just want to point out that the slides we went over previously really points to young people who are getting out of non-secure placement. The transition looks very different. The resources are very different. And unfortunately, many of our young people are left behind because of the lack of resources for young people who are transitioning from secure settings. So you know, youth in secure detention have limited resources for education reentry planning when compared to youth in close to home programs, right? Because we talk about them having that entire team, specialist and coordinator and all these people who are involved. And so each student in a secure detention facility is assigned an ACS case manager. Those case managers can offer help and be resources to parents or guardians of youth who are transitioning from secure detention facilities, but it's not like this is a required thing. This is not like this is what happens with every young person who transitions from one of these settings. And so case managers can assist with getting students' transcripts and contacting someone at the DOE to help with placement. There are also Department of Education court liaisons who can do this as well, who are located within courthouses. But unfortunately, many parents don't have access to that. And parents are not always provided with as much assistance. So parents usually visit their local family welcome centers once the student is out to get assistance with enrollment. And many of us may know or may not know is that like it is kind of taxing for many parents who are dealing with getting their son or daughter back home and then having court dates and different appointments due to court related incidents and the involvement, right? And so it is very difficult for parents to, on top of that, have to figure out going to a family welcome center and getting their child re-enrolled. So we want to try to avoid these things. And many parents are able to get connected with me in ways and sometimes it takes a while, but you know, there are limited resources, unfortunately, for parents and students who are in secure placement. So I want to talk through some common issues. There are quite a few common issues that we see from generally, right, across the board, whether we're talking about secure detention, non-secure detention, or limited secure detention, there are some themes of issues that we see. And many of these are, students, the DOE often fails to provide students with placement even after they're released. And so this is a big issue because we see that many families, sorry, my computer is dying. We see that many families are in situations where their child gets home and they are idle. They do not have a school placement. And so there's a large gap between the time that the student is home and when they are finally re-enrolled in a community school. And this creates many issues for young people, especially those with disabilities. There's an interruption in their education, interruption in the services that they are entitled to. And many of them go in behind because of this. And so it is a larger issue that we are working to address. Once released, students struggle with receiving credits or grades earned while attending Passages Academy. So this is a huge one, right? We're seeing many students who are earning credits while in Passages Academy. And unfortunately, when they are back in their community schools, when they're back home, they don't know what happened to those credits. We get many calls about families who are seeing this pattern of, my child earned 2 credits and didn't get those. And again, as I said earlier, if a young person has capacity and has earned 0.5 credits, they deserve to get those credits because it is challenging to be consistent and earn credits as a young person in this type of setting. It's not an easy feat. And so we really want to make sure that students are earning their credits. So this is another issue that we're seeing largely. So Passages Academy staff failed to provide completed evaluations, IEPs, and SEP updates, noting students' progress or regression. So this is one of the things that we also notice is that many times we're not seeing that, if there was an evaluation or if there was something that happened within the public, the Passages Academy school, once they're back into either a District 1 to 32 school, or if they're back in a District 75 school, we're not seeing any notices of like what exactly happened. The students' family is often in the dark as well, and then so is the staff within the DOE school. Because the SEP and the IEP are 2 different documents, they often don't see it in the database, in the CSIS database. They're confused. And so we want to make sure that this is not happening as well. It is something that we are working on. And then once released, students wish to explore alternative pathways to graduation. However, parents have limited resources to getting students enrolled once they have re-entered. And so we know, again, as we mentioned earlier, these students are largely overage and undercredited, and many times they are a school avoidant because they do not want to be a 17-year-old or even an 18-year-old in 8th or 9th grade. And so there are alternative pathways to graduation. Pathways to graduation being one of those options, as well as many transfer high schools, right? The transfer high school options are often very good options for many of our young people, especially those who are at the 16, 17-year-old age bracket. Those options allow young people to accelerate and graduate in a way that they kind of control because it's a little more independent. These options can be a little challenging for students with disabilities unless you are able to find a transfer school that may cater to students with IEPs. This is something that we do at SJP. And SJP is happy to help with students who may be in situations where they do have an IEP, they are in a unique situation in terms of overage and undercredited, and may want alternate options for graduation. And so if transfer high schools are something you're interested in, you can absolutely reach out to me about that. So really quickly, I want to go through some key takeaways. Because I know this is a lot of information, and I think um, some of you guys may know this stuff already and see it a lot, and so I want to make sure that there are things that you are kind of focused on, things that we know parents should automatically have, especially when we're talking about students transitioning back home. So again, the first thing is that students must attend school if they are within compulsory school age. Education cannot be denied, right? We want to make sure that when a young person is in, whether a secure, non-secure, or limited secure, if they would like to go to school, that they are not denied the right to go. This is something that happens. It's more common, I would say, upstate. However, in New York City, we know that many young people were denied the right to go to school because of capacity issues. There wasn't enough space in certain classrooms. After Raise the Age, there was just an insurmountable amount of young people in these facilities. And oftentimes there was not enough space to have traditional classrooms. That is not an excuse. The city still has a right to provide an education to young people, and so this cannot be denied for any reason. If you or a family member or someone that you know has experienced this, we would like to know. And so, again, my contact information will be provided at the end of this webinar, so that you can share those stories. So students also have the right to attend the school they previously attended prior to detention or placement if there are no court orders preventing such. So again, this is a big one. If a young person would like to go back to their previous home school, that is something that they have a right to do, given there are no court orders, full stay away orders of protection, or any limited order of protection caveats which prevent them from going to a certain school. This happens often where young people are like, man, I really want to go back to my school, but however, maybe the incident that caused them to go to the facility in the first place had everything to do with the school. And so you do not want to be in a situation where you are in more trouble because you went back to a school where you were told you could not. And so unless there is an issue where the young person cannot be there, a young person does have the right to return to their school. So parents have the right to be informed and participate in IEP and SEP meetings, general education meetings pertaining to their child's progress while attending a Passages Academy. So again, Passages Academy is a District 79 school under the umbrella of the Department of Education, New York City Department of Education. We know that because of that, parents have the right. Your rights do not disappear because your child is in an ACS facility. It does not disappear. So parents should be still participating in IEP and SEP meetings. No one should be making educational decisions for your child. Parents are not like now all of a sudden terminated from having the right of making education decisions for their child. I would also note that which is not here, and I would be remiss if I did not say this, but even if a parent, and I think this is a great time to say this, because if a parent is really struggling and has wanted to get their child evaluated and has not been able to do that, while a child is in the care of ACS and going to a Passages Academy, it is something that parents can request. So if a parent is like saying, I fear my child has a disability, or I'm concerned about my child's mental health and well-being, there are some options for parents to get access to evaluations while their child is in any one of those facilities. So you still have the right to request, investigation for special education services, even while your child is in any one of these facilities. So students have the right to receive special education services in both secure and close to home placement. Again, this is the same thing, right? We talk about receiving special education services. They should not be denied those services. Those services may look a little different, right? We talked about that earlier. They may look a little different. They may have a limited capacity in terms of staff. And so that may cause, them to say, oh, we can't provide it twice a week. We may have to provide it once per week. I think there was a question in the chat about whether or not the services would be increased because it's one day instead of two. Unfortunately, we just don't live in a perfect world, and the resources within many of the facilities are just not what they should be. And so because of that, we don't often see that our young people are getting, maybe increased services or increased hours because they were, slighted a day. Unfortunately, this is not something that we're seeing often. So I did want to answer that question, Marianne. We don't see that happen often. If it does happen, I am not aware of it, but from what I know, due to capacity issues, staffing, these facilities are not doing everything within their power to make sure that, oh wow, this young person is getting slighted an hour a week of services. We're going to offer 2 hours in one day. It's just not something we're seeing. All right. So want to get on to more common or takeaways. And an ACS specialist or an NSP case manager should assist a student and family with education related planning for reentry. So this is something that, again, we see many times in close to home placements, but we're not necessarily seeing this with our secure detentions, right? There should be a discharge meeting if a young person is in a non-secure placement. There should be a discharge meeting where we're talking about what does a young person's IEP look like? What's the recommendation? What school will they be placed in once they leave? This is if you're in a close to home program. However, we've had situations where a child was in a secure detention and randomly a judge says, you can get out on Monday. Today's like Friday. So now there is no plan for a young person to get out. Where are they going to school? What does the parent know what to do? And we're not seeing enough on the ground that's happening in a way that's meaningful for parents who have students in these specific settings. And they often are just kind of like left without any clue of how do I get my son back into these programs. So that's a big one. I want to say that if you are experiencing this as well, we should definitely talk. I really want to say that many parents who are coming out of the secure detention spaces are having these issues where kids are just home 30 plus days. I mean, idle, no school, no IEP updates, nothing for more than 30 days. It's not acceptable. So if this is a situation that you are experiencing, we encourage you to reach out to Advocates for Children. So parents can connect with a school psychologist at both Passages and Horizons to request an evaluation or reevaluation if their child has, or they may suspect their child has a disability. So this is something that I was mentioning earlier. When we're talking about students who may have a disability or are suspected to have one, And parents have been trying their hardest to get an evaluation, right? We know how hard it can be. Those wait lists are very long. We know how hard it can be to get the evaluations done. And so it is probably a crucial time where, like, now my child is in a facility under the care of ACS. I wanna reach out and request for an evaluation of my child to make sure that, either they do have a disability and they're getting the services that they need, or if they have a disability and I think there's something else going on and they're not getting enough. So students are entitled to this. And I think, again, it's not something many parents know. So if you're a professional in the field who works with families, and those students are in those placements, and they are experiencing situations where they think, oh, my child has a disability, I don't know what to do. This is the right time to make that request through the school psychologist at either facility. So Polk Passages, again, is the school in which the school psychologist works for, and they are at both Horizon and Crossroads. Again, so lastly, parents can contact Advocates for Children at any point if there are education-related issues, once a student re-enters their community. And this, again, is not just the things we covered here, right? Because we only had a limited amount of time. There are so many other things that we probably can cover. And so we want to make sure that folks know that there are options out there for getting help. And I wanted to share this resource with you both, with everyone here. Before we leave today, District 79, again, under Passages Academy, is the placement where young people are going to school. And so the transition part of things, right? We said earlier that we are working really, really hard to improve the experiences of families who are in these circumstances. Families of those who have, kids in secure, non-secure, or limited secure, they deserve better access, better resources, and smoother transitions. And so we've worked really hard to continue meeting with District 79 about these issues. And we now know there is an assistant principal of transition. Her name is Crystal Wright. I spoke with her myself to see, like, is this okay for us to give out your cell number and your office number? And she said yes. And so what we would like to do is share both Crystal and Stacy Oliger, who is the Family and Community Empowerment Administrator. We would like to share their contact information with you guys. If you cannot see that, here it is, a little up close. We'd like to share this contact information with you in case you are working with a court-involved young person who is transitioning out of either placements, right? So if we're talking about secure, mostly secure, but even with the close to home and limited secure, if you are having issues with this, you can reach out to the assistant principal at Passages Academy, who is in charge of transitions. So that means she is specifically in charge of making sure our young people do not have that idle time that I discussed earlier. They don't have that idle time anymore, and that they are getting all their credits, and that they know what schools they can go to, what their options are. That would be for Crystal Wright. But if there are additional things needed in terms of District 79, Stacy Oliger is also someone who we speak very closely with here at Advocates for Children. And she would be able to assist if there are other issues that come up with whether it's special education issues or general education issues. What that looks like can be really reaching out to her directly. And then you can kind of just say, like, I got your information from Advocates for Children because I have this issue that needs resolving. In the event that, this does not work out and you cannot reach either Crystal or Stacy, you're also welcome to reach out to me. My number my email is here. I think that's the best way to reach me at this point, because I do have a lot of people contacting me about court-involved students. And so you can reach me at ebernard@advocatesforchildren.org. I wanted to leave a couple minutes because I do see that we have like quite a few questions in the chat. And so I want to make sure that I get to those questions. Let's see, I think we have 2 left. So will the time be allotted be increased in services? Okay, so this was one of the things we were talking about with Mary Ann. This is not something we see, Mary Ann. It's just not a perfect world where our court related folks and District 79 and everybody is like, oh, let's make sure we're divvying up the time in a way that is appropriate. And I believe, you know, this is exactly the issue that we're seeing. When we're talking about maybe services that a young person is entitled to, and they're not receiving those, compensatory services, again, is crucial. But this is where I think parents knowing what is happening within the facilities are really important. We don't know, a lot of parents don't even know if their child is getting the services that they're supposed to. And so, yeah, we don't have the greatest answer for this because it's just not something they're doing. It's not something they're doing. I couldn't imagine that it is. And if it is happening, we don't know about it. It hasn't been our experience. So. And the next questions are, how are students that are chronically absent receiving school re-engagement supports? This is a good question, Lottie. Lottie, we are actually working really, really closely with a few groups and orgs throughout the city who are tackling this issue of school avoidance. School avoidance for 2 reasons, right? We're seeing school avoidance from young people who are either they have some mental health concerns. Yes, school avoidance is the term we use here at Advocates for Children, and whether it's a young person who has mental health concerns or whether it's a young person who just has like issues with safety and navigating their communities. Much of the re-engagement tools and supports that are coming about is really from nonprofit agencies. I would encourage everyone, if you're here and you're working with students who are court involved, to reach out to the local agencies who have the credible messenger programs. Most of those programs are offering incentives and paying young people to go to school. But I think those are like, we're seeing that working for the population of students who are just like, may have safety concerns. When we're talking about young people who have more so anxiety, right? Things that are mental health related, those issues are becoming a real thing, especially as we're a post-COVID world now. Our young people who are school avoidant is getting younger and younger, right? What do we do? How do we address that? And Advocates for Children is working very actively to figure out ways and methods and practices for addressing this. And a colleague of mine and myself have an upcoming workshop with a partner org that we hope to kind of like perfect it so that we can actually offer that as a webinar, because we do think it is a more a meaty topic these days. A lot of people are experiencing young people on their caseloads who have this school avoidant issue. And I think it is very case by case. And so Lottie, I welcome you to give me a call, send me an email. So maybe we can talk through some options for young people, especially those who are transitioning out of court settings who are school avoidant. I would love to hear what that looks like and if maybe we can offer some help in any way. Can you please share the details of that workshop if we are allowed to attend? So sure, Nora. So Nora, we are, like I said before, we're doing that workshop, the school avoidant workshop, with a partnering agency. It is an internal thing that we're perfecting. What we would like to do is be able to offer this to the public at some point in the very, very near future, so that folks feel feel like we gave them answers, right? I think this is a very, very hard topic. This is one of the topics that I think not just court-involved youth are facing, right? This is like very general. This is a very broad topic, and again, can be a consequence of mental health concerns and then also safety concerns. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing this in a real way. And so what we're hoping to do is kind of troubleshoot this workshop with this partnering org, perfect it, and then offer it to the public. So I would encourage you in the next couple months to please look out on our website and maybe sign up and subscribe so that you're up to date on any upcoming webinars or workshops that we have that will cover the topic of school avoidance. Because it is something that is largely talked about amongst AFC staff, and it is something that we are working on internally. So yeah, if there are no more questions, we did wrap up a little bit early. Oh wait, one more question from Jasmine. Would you say Pathways to Graduation or the Family Enrollment Center is a better contact for students leaving detention or with criminal justice involvement in terms of knowing all the ways they can finish their high school degree? Like I want to answer this correctly. I don't know if there's a better contact. I would always say that AFC is the better contact, Jasmine. And this is not to toot our own horn, but oftentimes when you're calling in a family enrollment center, like, right, the family welcome centers are not the best, especially, and I want to say especially when a young person has justice involvement and has an IEP. Right. And so we're seeing that, right? We're seeing that the family welcome centers are not always the best place to go to. It's not the greatest resource. I would say Pathways to Graduation, depending on the borough, but overall they do have a really good staff. A staff with people of color who are from the communities and often have better answers. But I do think when you're talking about a young person who has the double whammy of like court involvement, they have an IEP, oftentimes you need to speak to people who are experts in this and can kind of point you in the right direction for options. So if you're talking about a young person who recently got out from one of these placements, has an IEP, I would highly recommend you reaching out to me so I can point you in the direction of an appropriate school that's maybe a transfer high school that works with students with IEPs that can meet their needs. If you're not doing this, it gets a little difficult, and many times you'll see that the young person will wind up in a placement that's not the most appropriate. So I wouldn't say there is really a better agency than AFC. If this is something that you're noticing and you want to know what are the options for a young person, you can absolutely reach out to me directly so that we can kind of troubleshoot what this would look like. All right, I hope that answers your question. I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. For those of you who came last year and came again to learn more and see more, please use those numbers. This is a new addition to the webinar because we have been hounding District 79 about these issues, and we want you guys to use those numbers. The more you use those numbers, the easier it is for us to advocate for change in a real way. And so this really helps our lobbying, and it really helps us understand what the needs are out there. SJP stands for the School Justice Project. So specifically, I'm staff attorney for the School Justice Project at Advocates for Children. And the School Justice Project is the project at Advocates for Children that only works with young people with court involvement who are in placements, detention placements, not secure, and limited secure. So thank you all again for being here. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more School Justice Project webinars, more school avoidance webinars are coming up. New school avoidance webinars are coming up for you guys because these are issues that we know are really, really important and pressing. And so we're really, really happy to get those done for you guys. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your week, and we'll see you again soon.